You don't miss deadlines all at once. It happens quietly. You tell yourself, I still have time, so you scroll a little, rest a little, delay it just a little longer. And somehow, that little turns into hours. Then the pressure comes, the stress, the panic, the promise you make to yourself. Next time, I won't do this again. But next time comes, and the same thing happens, again and again, until one day you start asking yourself a question you don't really want to answer. Why do I keep doing this, even when I know better? It's not that you're lazy, it's not that you don't care, and it's definitely not that you lack discipline, because you've tried before. You've made plans, set goals, downloaded apps, watched videos just like this one. For a few days, maybe even a week, you were different, focused, sharp, in control. And then it slipped. Not suddenly, just slowly, until you were back in the same cycle again. So here's the truth most people never realize. You don't have a motivation problem. You have a system problem. And until that changes, no amount of willpower will save you. But there is a way out. A system so simple, it feels almost too basic to work. And yet, once you follow it, you stop negotiating with time. You stop chasing deadlines. You become the person who finishes early, without stress, without panic, without excuses. But be careful, because once you understand this system, you won't be able to go back to who you are right now. So ask yourself, are you ready to fix this? Or are you still hoping it will somehow fix itself?
Let's call him Raphael. Not because he's special, but because he's almost everyone. Raphael doesn't hate working. In fact, he cares. He wants to do things well. He wants to be someone reliable. That's why every time he gets a new deadline, he tells himself, this time will be different. And at first, it is. He plans things out. He feels clear, in control. There's even a quiet sense of pride, like he's finally becoming the person he's been trying to be. But then, something small happens. A little delay, a small distraction, a thought that sounds harmless. I'll start in a bit. And that's where it begins. Not with failure, but with negotiation. I still have time. I work better under pressure. Just one more video. And strangely, it feels okay. Until it doesn't. Because suddenly, time is gone. Now it's late. Now it's urgent. Now it matters. So Raphael rushes. He pushes through stress, forces himself to focus, finishes just in time, or sometimes not even that. And when it's over, he sits there, exhausted, thinking, why do I always do this to myself? So he resets. New plan, new promise, new version of himself. But deep down, nothing has really changed, because a few days later, the same pattern returns. Motivation, to negotiation, to surrender, to reset. Again and again and again. And here's the part that hurts the most. It's not that Raphael doesn't know what to do. It's that in the moment, he becomes someone else. Someone who delays, someone who avoids, someone who quietly breaks promises no one else can see. And over time, that doesn't just affect his deadlines. It changes how he sees himself. Less confident, less certain, less in control. So if this feels familiar, the problem isn't your effort. It's the loop you're trapped in. And unless you break it, you won't just keep missing deadlines. You'll keep becoming someone you never meant to be.
Principle 1. Identity before action. Here's where everything changes. Not with a new habit, not with a better plan, but with something much deeper. How you see yourself. Because Raphael's real problem was never time. It was identity. Every time he said, "I'll try to start earlier," or "I'll try not to delay this time," he was leaving a door open, a small, invisible exit, and the brain notices that. Because the moment things feel uncomfortable, that door becomes an escape, and without realizing it, he walks through it again and again. This is why trying never works, because trying means failure is still an option. Now compare that to something different. Not, "I will try to finish on time," but "I am someone who does things early." Feel the difference? One is a wish, the other is a decision. One depends on mood, the other becomes a standard. This is what ancient practitioners called something close to gyoji, a way of living where the practice has no gaps. Not because it's forced, but because it becomes who you are. And once that shift happens, everything else starts to align. You don't wake up and debate anymore. You don't sit there negotiating with yourself, because there's nothing to decide. A person who tries still asks, "Do I feel like doing this today?" But a person who is simply acts. So the real question is not, "How can I stop missing deadlines?" The real question is, "Who am I becoming every time I delay?" Because every small action, every later, every hesitation is casting a vote, not for your results, but for your identity. And once you see that clearly, you can't go back to trying anymore. You either become the person who finishes early, or you keep reinforcing the one who doesn't. Principle 2. Eliminate the when. Most people don't miss deadlines because they don't have time. They miss deadlines because they keep deciding when to start. And that decision happens more often than you think. You wake up and think, "Should I start now or later?" You sit down and wonder, "Maybe I'll do it tonight." You delay it to tomorrow. Then tomorrow becomes another decision. And every time you decide, you drain a little bit of energy. Not physical energy, mental energy. The kind that slowly wears you down until even simple tasks feel heavy. This is called decision fatigue, and your brain hates it. It doesn't want to choose again and again. It wants something easier, something automatic. That's why people who never miss deadlines don't rely on motivation. They remove the decision entirely. They don't ask when. They already know. Same time, every single day. No discussion, no adjustment based on mood. No, "I'll do it later if I feel better." Just one fixed moment that does not move. Because once the time is fixed, something interesting happens. The resistance gets quieter. Not because the task is easier, but because the argument disappears. There's nothing left to negotiate. It's just what you do. Think about it like this. If you had to decide every day when to brush your teeth, you'd probably delay that too. But you don't, because the time is already part of your life. That's the level you're aiming for. So instead of asking, "When should I work on this?" ask something simpler. What is the exact time this happens every day? And once you choose it, protect it, like it's not a plan, but a rule. Because the moment you stop deciding when, you remove one of the biggest reasons you keep falling behind. Principle 3. Eliminate the what. Even if you fix the time, most people still fail. Not because they're lazy, but because every day they're still deciding what to do. And that decision is more exhausting than it looks. You sit down at the right time, but then your mind starts spinning. Should I start with this task or that one? Maybe I should do something easier first. What's the best way to do this today? And just like that, you're stuck again. Not working, just thinking. Because when there are too many options, the brain doesn't choose better. It chooses slower. Or worse, it avoids choosing at all. This is where most systems break. Too much flexibility, too many choices, too much thinking. So here's the shift. You don't need a better plan. You need fewer options. Instead of asking yourself what you feel like doing today, you decide it once and repeat it every day. Same structure, same starting point, same sequence. It can be simple. Open your laptop, work on the main task for 30 minutes, no switching, no checking, no adjusting. That's it. No creativity needed. No optimization, no better way. Just repetition. Because repetition does something powerful. It removes resistance. The task stops feeling like a decision and starts feeling like a routine, like brushing your teeth, like locking your door. You don't think about it, you just do it. And over time, your brain begins to expect it, not as effort, but as normal. So if you want to stop missing deadlines, don't make your system smarter, make it simpler. Because the fewer choices you have, the easier it becomes to act. And the easier it becomes to act, the less likely you are to delay at all. Principle 4. No gaps. Most people don't fail because they stop completely. They fail because they miss once, and then they disappear. One missed day becomes two. Two becomes a week, and a week quietly turns into giving up. Not because they can't continue, but because something inside them says, if I can't do it properly, what's the point? So they wait. They wait for the perfect moment to restart. A day with more energy, more time, more motivation. But that day rarely comes. And even when it does, the same pattern repeats. Start strong, slip once, stop completely. This is the trap. The idea that discipline has to be perfect. But real consistency doesn't work like that. It was never about doing everything. It was about not disappearing. Because missing one day is not what breaks you. Breaking the chain is. There's a quiet difference between the two. One is a small mistake. The other is a decision. So instead of asking, did I do it perfectly today? Ask something simpler. Did I show up? Even if it's smaller, even if it's slower, even if it's just a fraction of what you planned, still show up. Sick day? Do the light version. Busy day? Do the shortest version. No energy? Do the easiest version. But don't vanish. Because the moment you disappear, your brain starts to forget. Forget the rhythm. Forget the identity you were building. Forget that this is just what you do now. And starting again becomes harder than continuing. So protect the chain, not with perfection, but with presence. Because in the end, the people who never miss deadlines are not the ones who do the most. They're the ones who never break continuity. Principle 5. Pre-solution. Remove failure before it happens. Most people trust themselves too much. They believe that when the moment comes, they'll make the right decision. That when they're tired, they'll still choose to work. That when they're stressed, they'll stay disciplined. But reality doesn't work like that. Because in the moment, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your default. And if your default is hesitation, delay, avoidance, then that's exactly where you go. Not because you want to fail, but because you didn't prepare for the moment when it gets hard. This is where disciplined people are different. They don't wait to decide. They decide before the situation happens. Not if something goes wrong, but when it does. They already know the answer. If I oversleep, I start immediately. If I feel tired, I do the lighter version. If I don't feel like it, I follow the system anyway. No thinking, no debating, no emotional decision, just execution. Because the more tired you are, the worse your decisions become. So they remove the need to decide at all. They build responses in advance. Simple, clear, automatic, like a reflex. And over time, this changes everything. Because now, failure doesn't come from chaos. It can only happen if you break your own system. So instead of asking, how do I stay disciplined every day? Ask something more honest. What will I do when I don't feel like it? Answer that now. Not later, not in the moment. Now.
Because the strongest system is not the one that works when you feel good, it's the one that still works when you don't. At some point, something quiet begins to change. Not overnight, not dramatically, just subtly. You start noticing you're no longer rushing. Deadlines don't feel heavy anymore. They don't sit in the back of your mind like something chasing you. Because for the first time, you're not reacting to time. You're ahead of it. You begin earlier. You move without resistance. You finish before things become urgent. And at first, it feels strange. Almost like you're doing less but getting more done. There's no panic, no last-minute pressure, no voice in your head saying, "Hurry, you're running out of time." Just a quiet rhythm. You sit down and you start. No negotiation, no delay, no drama. And people notice. They won't always say it directly, but you'll hear things like, "How do you stay so consistent? How are you always done so early?" And sometimes they'll look at you a little differently, not impressed, but curious. Because from the outside, it doesn't look like effort. It looks like control. The kind of control most people feel like they've lost. And here's the part they don't see. You didn't become more motivated. You didn't suddenly become better. You just stopped arguing with yourself. You removed the chaos, the constant decisions, the emotional ups and downs. And what's left is someone who simply does what needs to be done. Again and again and again. Until one day you realize something simple. You're not trying to meet deadlines anymore. You're the kind of person who doesn't let them catch up to you. And once you reach that point, there's no going back, because you're no longer building discipline. You've become it. So now you understand the system. Not motivation, not hacks, a system. Simple, clear, uncomfortable, but real. And at this point, there are only two types of people watching this. The first type feels inspired. They nod, they agree. They tell themselves, "This makes sense, I should try this." And maybe they will. For a day, maybe two. Then slowly, life gets in the way, and everything returns to how it was before. But the second type is different. They don't feel excited, they feel decided. Something clicks, not in their emotions, but in their identity. They don't say, "I'll try this." They say, "This is who I am now." And from that moment, everything changes. So here's what I want you to do. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Decide one thing, just one, that you will no longer delay. Something real, something you've been avoiding. And don't keep it in your head. Make it visible. Write it down. Or better, leave it in the comments. Not as a goal, as a declaration. I am someone who blank. Keep it simple, keep it clear, but make it real. Because the moment you say it, you're no longer just watching, you're stepping into it. And if you're serious about becoming someone who doesn't chase deadlines anymore, then don't just understand the system, start living it. One action, one time, no gaps, starting now. There's one thing most people never notice. Discipline doesn't change your life in one big moment. It changes it quietly. In the way you wake up without bargaining. In the way you start without waiting for the right mood. In the way you finish things without that familiar rush of panic. Nothing feels dramatic. No big breakthrough. No sudden transformation. Just small moments done differently, again and again. And over time, those small moments begin to stack, until one day you look back and realize something strange. The things that used to feel hard don't feel hard anymore. The delays that used to control you don't even show up. And the person who once said, "I'll do it later," feels distant, almost like someone you used to know. That's how the shift happens. Not loudly, not all at once, but slowly, and then all at once. So if today feels small, that's okay. It's not supposed to feel powerful yet. It's supposed to feel real. Because this isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming consistent. And consistency, done long enough, becomes identity. So take your time, but don't break the chain. And sooner than you think, you won't just be someone who meets deadlines, you'll be someone who moves through life without chasing anything at all.